decision, Paddy!
He's back. From calling out Mark Zuckerberg to his endless fights with haters, Paddy Pimblett's finally returned to Twitter. Paddy's had a wild ride with social media. We can't really say that Paddy's relationship with social media is all bad. It's a big part of why he's so famous. I mean, we know him as an MMA fighter, but believe it or not, Paddy's never been ranked by the UFC. That means he's never been one of the top 15 fighters in his division. And not only that, he's never fought a ranked fighter. This isn't to say that Paddy's a bad fighter.
By TKO, Paddy! The Paddy!
He's undefeated in the UFC after 4 fights. But he still hasn't managed anything spectacular. So why is everybody talking about Paddy Pimblett? Well, a big part of it definitely has to do with his winning streak, and the fact that he stayed in Cage Warriors for such a long time.
Being that long out the cage, nearly 19 months now, over 18 months, and I just wanted to get back in.
Resisting the UFC and making a name for himself with British and Irish crowds. But let's face it, the main reason everybody knows Paddy is his outrageous personality. Every time the man speaks, he says something memorable. It may not be something nice, but it's always something. When asked if he missed his six-pack after he blows up between fights, Paddy said, "I'd rather be fat and happy than ripped." Like, these people who are ripped all year round are not happy. I don't care what they say. This six-pack's sound. I look great, but I'd rather be fat and happy, lad. The man's a master when it comes to making a show. And of course, the comparisons with Conor McGregor's rise are inevitable. I mean, there's definitely something there. Remember when Conor said, "You'll do nothing, you'll do nothing. Not one of yous will do nothing." Paddy once said, "What'll you do? You'll do nothing, you'll do nothing, you little go and sit back down." To be fair, I'd say every kid in Dublin and Liverpool says that. But Paddy's definitely learned Conor's lesson. It's not just about the wins. It's also about exposure. Sponsors don't want the best athletes anymore. They want Instagram magnets. That's why Paddy's been huge on social media. He has 2.5 million followers on Instagram. Even with that, he's far from the most followed fighter. But every other fighter with millions of followers is a champion, a contender, or at least very high up in the rankings. None of this is true for Paddy. He also has a pretty large YouTube channel, where he shares his adventures in vlog-style videos. These adventures normally include him digesting large amounts of food and calling himself fat. On his YouTube channel, he also hosts an interview podcast called The Chattin' Pony, where he speaks to athletes, comedians, and other celebrities. Paddy's embraced the world of social media, and the world of social media has embraced him. He has a strong personality and has been in a lot of online arguments. Most celebrities block their haters, or at least make an effort to ignore them. But we all know Paddy isn't like that, and often finds himself rolling in the mud with online strangers.
Lasting at the end of the month, and every time he's proved everyone wrong, lad, and he's beat it, so.
Paddy hasn't always been very politically correct with his insults. This led to Instagram deleting some of his posts for abusive language. But it got worse. Paddy posted about a local kid who was sick.
4 AM to a message that one of my friends back home had killed himself.
And some users replied making fun of the kid. As you might imagine, Paddy lost his. Paddy wrote, "I said, you dirty piece of you are a piece of vermin on my shoe." Instagram wasn't happy, and the following day, his account was suspended. Obviously, the baddie wasn't planning to keep quiet about this. And a few days later, he submitted Rodrigo Vargas in London. After the fight, he was asked if he wanted to call out any fighters. And he said, "Who do I want to fight? Mark Zuckerberg. Lad, I'm gonna punch your head in. I'm sick of you, lad, shutting my Instagram account down. When all I do is help charities and people with mental health problems. You're the biggest bully in the world, lad." Paddy can definitely hold a grudge. And I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg didn't see that one coming. Paddy's Instagram has been shut down twice so far, both times for similar reasons. But at least his Twitter seems to be doing okay. That is, until he got into yet another argument. So why exactly was Paddy Pimblett kicked out of Twitter? Well, it's hard to say for sure, because the tweets were deleted. But the baddie said, Yeah, someone's had to say like Liverpool fans are victims and this and that. It goes back to something different. And I just called them a fat ugly and Twitter took my account off me. If you're not familiar with Liverpool Football Club, this may seem confusing.
Buying the league like other teams do and buying trophies. We have to do it the hard way, the way.
But here's a brief explanation. Paddy's often voiced his support for the victims of the Hillsborough disaster. This was a tragic event where 96 Liverpool fans died at a football match. After being crushed by the moving crowd, another fan died years later, bringing the number of deaths up to 97. This happened back in 1989, but the events are still very controversial to this day, as people feel the fans were put in danger by the authorities. For Liverpool fans, it's an extremely emotional subject, and for Paddy's haters, it's the perfect way to get under his skin. Paddy's extremely critical of a British newspaper called The Sun. The Sun publicly blamed the victims and insulted Liverpool fans back in the day. That's why you'll often hear Paddy say things like, "Justice for the 97, don't buy The Sun, it's a rag." Or the time he said, "Just before we get started, if there's any reporters from The Sun in here, don't dare ask me a question. Don't put me in that rag of a newspaper, just thought I'd get that out of the way." Paddy's worst online fights have stemmed from this touchy subject, and he definitely wasn't happy about losing his Twitter account, so he created another one. And that one was eventually suspended as well, because Twitter realized it was him. He even called on Elon Musk to buy Twitter and reinstate him. Paddy's wish eventually came true, and the Tesla billionaire acquired Twitter. But by then, Paddy changed his mind about Twitter, saying, "Nah, I don't want Twitter back, lad. Twitter's a cesspit. Twitter gets me in trouble. People interpret things that I say and twist it, and make it sound like I've said something I haven't and make me look bad when I've never said any of those things. People just misinterpret what I say on purpose to make me look bad."
He was to win the league with me. He always said, "Oh, it'll kill me if I never see us win the."
I've gotta say, the baddie's got a point there. But hey, social media is addictive, and when his account was finally reinstated, Paddy was back, with a bang. And this was his first tweet. "I'm back, what's been happening?" I wonder how long it'll last. But hey, Musk's rules certainly seem more lenient. Also, maybe Paddy learned a lesson. The man's been through a lot of controversies recently.
Say something in your head, you give yourself so many different options. When you speak to someone about it, they say, "Oh yeah."
Especially regarding his unconvincing win over Jared Gordon. And he says he loves social media as a way to give back to the community and support charities. He's also been very outspoken on topics like mental health and bullying, so it'd be a shame to see his account go again. At the end of the day, it'll all come down to Paddy's temper. And there you have it, fight fans. Paddy Pimblett's finally returned to Twitter.
Watch this big people fight to the night.